Discipline doesn't start when you feel motivated. That's a complete lie. Discipline starts when you hate your life and you absolutely have to change it. Welcome back to Built After Breakage. My name is Stephen Mason. This podcast is for the man who knows he's capable of more, but feels stuck between who he's been and who he wants to become. If you've ever felt like, I know what I need to do, but I just can't get myself to do it, then this episode is for you. In the last episode, I talked about the moment where everything in my life started to change. Not because my situation changed, but because I finally surrendered. But here's what nobody tells you. It's surrender doesn't fix your life overnight. It just gives you a chance to rebuild it. And that's where this episode begins. When I got out of prison, nothing was magically better in my life. I didn't wake up with purpose. I didn't feel motivated. I didn't suddenly become disciplined. I just knew I needed to work and start rebuilding my life. But when your life is broken, you don't know how to actually rebuild it. Like I said, I knew I needed to work, but I felt like I was behind. I felt like I lost 8.5 years of progress. And that's the most dangerous place a man can be. Because when you feel like you're already behind, you stop acting like your choices matter. You made decisions in the moment, hoping those decisions get you ahead, not contemplating your future. Let me paint this picture for you, because I don't want this to sound like some highlight reel. This was real life. This was my life. There were mornings I woke up and the first thought in my head wasn't, let's go build something. It was, what's the point of all this? There wasn't necessarily excitement or drive or a vision. I just had this heavy weight on my shoulders. And I know there are men listening right now who wake up with that same feeling. You go to work, you handle your responsibilities, but inside you feel empty. And that's a dangerous place to be. Because when a man feels empty, he starts looking for something to fill it. And most of the time, he fills it with the wrong things. That's where bad decisions come from. That's where addiction comes from. And ultimately, that's where cheating comes from. And it's not because we're weak, but it's because we're trying to escape a life we don't feel connected to. And that was me. I didn't feel true purpose in my life. And I think this is where a lot of men get stuck, because nobody ever teaches you what to do with that feeling. We're told to man up. We're told to figure it out and just push through, but nobody ever explains how. So what happens? You start building habits that numb you instead of build you up. You distract yourself. You stay busy. You avoid being alone with your thoughts, because the moment things get quiet, you start hearing the truth. And the truth is very uncomfortable. The truth is you're not where you should be. The truth is you've made decisions that cost you. The truth is you've been living below your potential. And most men would rather avoid that truth than actually face it. But that truth you're avoiding is exactly where your life starts to change. You need to step into that, not run away from it. There were days I didn't want to do anything, for that matter. No motivation, no excitement, no vision, just going through the motion. And the war that most men are dealing with but won't admit is the fact that you know what you should do, but you don't feel like doing it. And you follow those feelings, so you lose. because your feelings are based on your past, not your future. And my past was chaos. So if I listened to how I felt, I would have gone right back into chaos. Let me break this down in a way nobody ever explained it to me. Your feelings are trained by your past. So if your past is chaos, your feelings pull you towards chaos. If your past is anger, your feelings pull you toward anger. So when you say, I don't feel like doing the right thing, that's not random. That's conditioning. And if you don't understand that, you'll spend your entire life thinking something is wrong with you, when in reality, you just never retrained yourself. Let me take it a step further. There are two versions of you, the one you've been and the one you know you could be. And every single day, you're casting a vote for one of them. Not with what you say, but with what you do. What you do and who you are is in your actions. And here's the scary part. You can't lie to yourself forever. So eventually, you are living your choices. Your life is a result of those choices. And when I sat with that, it really hit me. I wasn't stuck. I was undisciplined. And that's a very hard thing to admit as a man because it takes away all my excuses. It means it's not my past, it's not my environment, it's not other people, it's me. And the same goes for you. That's painful, but it's also very powerful because if it is you, you could change it. Let me tell you what changed everything for me. I stopped waiting to feel ready because discipline is not a feeling. It's a decision you have to make. And more than that, discipline is identity. You don't become disciplined by doing disciplined things once. You become disciplined by deciding that's who you are and acting like it every single day, even when you don't feel like it. That's probably the most important part. Most men try to change their life without changing who they believe they are. So they say, I'm trying to be disciplined, or they set goals, but deep down, there's a little voice that tells them, I'm inconsistent. I always fall off. And eventually they listen to that voice and it proves them right because your actions match your identity. That's why I shifted to I'm a disciplined man. And more importantly, I'm a Christian man. There were days I didn't feel like getting up, but I got up anyway. Days I didn't feel like working, but I worked anyway. I still have those days. But in the beginning, it felt fake. However, over time, it became normal. And that's when I realized you don't wait to become the man you want to be. You act like the man you want to become. And eventually, you'll turn into that man. I had to remove chaos because chaos is comfortable when it's all you've known. And I created structure. I woke up at the same time. I worked no matter what. I trained my body because if you don't control your life controls you. If you don't create structure, you fall right back into the same patterns. And patterns feel automatic. They feel natural because it's this cycle. And that's how people get stuck. Same habits, same mistakes, same life, different year. Motivation is dangerous and fleeting because you wait to feel motivated. But discipline moves no matter what. If you don't have purpose, discipline feels pointless. And that's why most men quit. But when discipline has purpose, everything changes. You're not just working, you are becoming someone. Nobody's coming to fix your life. And at some point, you have to decide, am I going to stay the man that I am, or am I going to become the man that I want to be? And that shows up in your actions. There is no perfect moment. Just the moment you decide, you're done. And it doesn't feel powerful or epic. It's just a quiet decision. But that quiet decision is where everything starts. Let me talk about something that I think almost every man feels, but very few actually say it out loud. There's a big gap between who you are and who you know you're supposed to be. And that gap will eat at you. It's not loud all the time. It doesn't scream at you every day, but it's there. It's always there. It shows up when you're alone. It shows up when you look at your life or you covet someone else's life. It shows up when you realize you're not living up to your potential. And that feeling is one of the heaviest things a man can carry because you know inside that you're capable of more, but you're not doing it. And that creates tremendous frustration. It creates guilt. It creates anger, not necessarily at other people, but anger at yourself that can outpour into other people. And if you don't deal with that gap, you start coping with it. You distract yourself. You justify who you are. You lower your standards and tell yourself, it's not that bad. I'll figure it out later. I'm still doing better than most people. But deep down inside, you know the truth. And the truth is, you're not living up to the full potential that you know you're capable of. And I lived in that gap for a long time. I knew I was capable of more, but I wasn't doing the things required to get there. And that creates a lot of tension inside you. At least it did me, because your potential is pulling you forward and your habits are holding you back. That tension will either push you to change or it can break you and eventually lead to chaos. And then you stay stuck and mired in that for a long time because, I kept trying to ignore it. But here's what I realized: you can't escape that feeling. You have to step into it. You can't numb it. You can't distract yourself. You can't, you can try to delay it, but ultimately, it'll rear its head because it's not coming from outside of you. It's coming from inside of you. It's who you're supposed to become, nudging you, calling you out. And the longer you ignore your inner self, the louder it gets. So then you try to numb it even more. But eventually you have to face it. And when you finally face it, you ultimately have two choices. You either step into who you're supposed to be, or you can keep living below your potential and stay who you are. And that's the decision that changed everything for me. I stepped into it because, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know what you're capable of, you can't pretend you don't. And that's where true discipline comes in, because discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you're supposed to be. It'll fill that gap. Let me say that again. Discipline is the bridge between who you are and who you are supposed to be. And most men never build that bridge because building it requires consistency. It requires discomfort. It requires doing things you don't feel like doing over and over again. And that's where most people stop. But if you can stay there, if you can keep showing up, it matters. If you can keep doing the work, the gap will be filled. It will start to close. And when that gap starts to close, something inside of you shifts. You start respecting yourself. You start trusting who you are. And ultimately, you start becoming the man that you want to be, someone you're proud of. And that feeling is worth everything, because there's nothing worse than knowing you are capable of more and not doing anything about it, at least in my opinion. And then there's nothing better, that feeling, than knowing you're becoming the man you're meant to be. And it doesn't necessarily happen all at once. It happens one decision at a time, one action at a time, one day at a time. But it starts with that decision. And that decision is very simple. I'm going to stay where I am or become who I'm supposed to be. You have a choice. And that's a question only you can answer. Most men won't admit this type of thing. Most men don't actually change. And that's not because they can't, but because they won't fully commit to that decision. Most men want a better life, but they don't want to let go of the habits that are keeping them where they are. They want discipline, but only when it's convenient for them. And they want growth, but not if it's uncomfortable. And that's the trap, because the life you say you want is on the other side of the things you are avoiding. Let that sink in. The man you want to become exists on the other side of discipline. That peace you are looking for exists on the other side of control. That purpose you want exists on the other side of responsibility. And most men, we just simply never cross that line, because crossing that line means you can't go back to who you were. And that's a scary feeling. It means you lose the excuses. It means you lose the identity that allowed you to stay comfortable. It means you have to own your responsibility. And that's where, most people stop, let alone men, because ownership is heavy. It's heavy to say, my life is the way it is because of me. But there's also freedom in that, because if it's your fault, it's also your responsibility. And if it's your responsibility, you can change it. It's up to you. And that's the shift I had to make. I stopped blaming everything around me, and I started taking ownership of everything inside of me. My actions, my mindset, my discipline, my decisions. And that's when things started to change. Not overnight, but consistently, because real change doesn't happen in one moment. It happens in 1,000 small decisions stacked over time. And here's the truth: when you start changing, you're going to feel uncomfortable and alone, because the people around you might not understand it. They might question you. They might doubt you. They might even try to pull you back. Not because they hate you, but because your growth forces them to confront their own lack of change. And that's uncomfortable. So you have to be strong enough and stand firm to keep going anyway. You have to pray for strength. Choose growth over comfort, because comfort will keep you exactly where you are. And growth will take you somewhere new, but it will cost you something. It will cost you your old habits. It will cost you your old mindset, your old friends. It will cost you the version of you that you can't take where you want to go. And that's the price most men aren't willing to pay. But if you are, your life will change because something changes inside of you. You become someone completely different. And when you become that person, you create a different life. Let's get practical. Wake up when you said you would wake up. Do what you said you would do. Stop negotiating with yourself. Because every time you break your word, you lose trust in yourself. And discipline rebuilds that trust. For the next 7 days, simply do what you said you would do. No excuses. Because every time you keep your word, you rebuild yourself, you regain trust in yourself. And this isn't about perfection, because you will mess up. But do not quit, because quitting resets everything. Consistency is where the momentum is built, and momentum moves your life forward. If this hits you, you're not alone. And if your life feels off track, don't carry it alone. Shoot me a message. And if you know another man who needs this, please send it to him, because most men are struggling in silence. And it's time we change that. In the next episode, we're going to go even deeper. I hope to see you there.